Hey guys, Jeff Lemieux here today to preview Saturday evening showdown between the New England Revolution and Columbus Crew. And who better to join me than old friend Brian Dunseth, who will be on the call alongside Adrian Healey at 5 p.m. Eastern time on Saturday on ESPN. Dunny, thanks so much for joining me. How you doing, buddy?
I'm fantastic. By the way, I seem to forget at times Adrian Healey and his time as a New England Revolution broadcaster, just when Derek Ray was a broadcaster for the New England Revolution as well. So, I'm excited about this one. Thanks for having me. It's been a while.
It has been. It's been way too long. And yeah, every time I hear Adrian Healey, Derek Ray on calls, it's a little bit of a flashback machine. I get those memories running back of the early Revolution days when I was watching Brian Dunseth patrol the back line for the New England
You were
Revolution.
like 4.
I was like 4.
You were like 4. I was like 20. And so a little bit of an age gap between us, but thanks for calling me old. That's a nice way to go.
You can tell as you look at us side by side, you can tell which one of us is a lot younger than the other one. I think it's pretty obvious to viewers out there. All right. Well, Dunny, look, we know the big storyline on Saturday is Columbus opening up lower.com field. We're going to hear all about it leading into this game. And you have a particularly unique perspective here because not only did you spend part of your playing career, which was a long, long time ago, both on the Revs and Crew, but you were in the Revolution starting 11 on May 15th, 1999, in the first ever game at what is now known as historic Crew Stadium. Yeah. So first of all, what's this going to be like for you, just kind of coming full circle and calling this game from the booth on Saturday?
Yeah, well, thankfully Taylor's busy with this little thing called Euros. So when I got the opportunity, I got the phone call. I was like, yeah, by the way, this is kind of crazy because here's my story. And I specifically remember sitting next to Teddy Chronopoulos. We were on like a Southwest flight on approach to Columbus, and we looked out the window, and there was this gorgeous soccer-specific stadium. And, we had played in Charleston. The Charleston Battery had a phenomenal stadium, fantastic bar. But this was like MLS. We always have these phases, right? Like MLS 1.0, MLS 2.0. Like, I don't know what phase we're in right now, but all I remember was looking out that window and thinking, my God, that game's going to be on ABC, which at the time, we didn't have a lot of nationally broadcast games for the Revolution. And like, that thing's going to be packed. It's a soccer specific stadium. We've made it. Like, we're planting the flag for Major League Soccer. And so game day, the pomp, the circumstance, I remember standing in the tunnel. I know it's like jokes now and like, oh, it's a Rector set and look how old it is. And remember when the scoreboard caught on fire and all that stuff. Like, yeah, I get that. But, there were some iconic moments inside of that stadium. And obviously when you think about like the national team, you think about Brian McBride and like his face, like all over the place against Mexico, or Josh Wolf getting in behind, Dos Aceto, Randy Donovan, all those guys. But, for after playing for the Revolution, going to the Miami Fusion and that team contracting, I ended up playing for Columbus as well and winning an Open Cup with Lamar Hunt inside of the stadium, and just like, understanding how much faith, how much financial equity he put into this league, along with obviously many, many others, the Crafts included. It was extraordinary. So on the day, obviously we came up short against Columbus, but yeah, to think that, and I was trying to explain this to my kids because they know, like, between New England and Miami and Columbus and out here at Real Salt Lake and Salt Lake City, like, I have connections to teams in Major League Soccer. So they were asking me about Columbus, but the one thing I kept coming back to is, guys, this is the first time we're seeing a soccer specific stadium replace a soccer specific stadium. And to me, like, going back to the late 90s, 97 New England Revolution, to have a soccer-specific stadium, and then in 2021 to be a part of a broadcast that reintroduces, like, whatever 350 million, 400 million, whatever lower.com field is going to be, it is extraordinary when we talk about the growth of the league financially, the structure that's been created, and serendipitous that I get to be a part of Columbus, New England, opening up this new stadium. And thankfully this time not being the one that's responsible for making mistakes and goals being scored against the team. I don't think I was irresponsible, but Jeff Cunningham scored a good goal.
Actually, we have those highlights queued up right now. If you want to roll those highlights, no, we don't have any highlights from that game.
There's me running backwards going, no.
I do. I want to tie back, though, your experience on May 15th, 1999 on the field to what the Revs are going to experience on Saturday, because you have been in this spot that Revs players will be in on Saturday. So what's it like to be the visiting team on a day like this? Because there's going to be so much focus on Columbus. So will the Revs be motivated to kind of spoil the party? Does that factor into the equation at all?
Yeah, 100%. I think what's different nowadays is these guys, they're not overawed by anything. It's actually the opposite. I think the players in Major League Soccer today are like, well, we've played in front of 72,000 at Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta on a couple different occasions, and we've won there. So, like, okay, cool, it's a new stadium. And yeah, there'll be fireworks, and it'll be, a little bit longer, the walkout, and, the fans will go crazy. But, you think about Sporting Kansas City, you think about Portland, you think about, like, Austin, you think about Inter Miami, Orlando, like all these at Bank of California Stadium in LA is gorgeous. I don't know if you guys have been out there. They're spoiled. They're spoiled brats. Like these guys, look at what they get now. We're getting paid Monopoly. No, I'm just so. I think what they'll enjoy the environment, because every soccer specific stadium now that's coming in, every new stadium in MLS has kind of these nooks and crannies and sight lines that you have to be aware of. It's the same as playing on artificial surface or playing in the heat and humidity down south or playing at altitude in Salt Lake or Colorado. They all kind of have like factors that you have to prepare for, mentally deal with. But this one, I think it's going to be a sea of black and yellow, yellow and black, crew colors. And I'm excited because what they have planned, from what I've seen so far in the rundown, should be, for a viewer's perspective, really pleasing. But the players themselves, listen, Bruce is gonna have them set up to play Caleb's team first and foremost. Everybody's familiar with everybody. I'm focusing in on Carlos Gil and Lucas Zelarayan. I think the big storyline for me is two clubs that hadn't really been known to spend money are now spending money, and they're spending money in a super intelligent way, and they're getting the return on their investment. And you're seeing the goals, and you're seeing the assists, and you're seeing these individual playmakers with the ability to score goals and entertain and take over matches. But the psychology is simple. It's let's ruin this day for Columbus and let's take 3 points. That's what it is. Let's send these fans home pissed that Columbus didn't win. That is the most basic form of probably what Bruce's side is going to try to accomplish.
Well, let's look at the two sides a little bit in the Revolution team that's going to try to ruin the day for Columbus, because they're looking to bounce back after what was a rare loss last weekend in Dallas. But they remain atop the Eastern Conference standings with a record of 7-2-2. You mentioned they're getting an MVP caliber performance from Carlos Gil. They're getting goalkeeper of the year performance out of Matt Turner. So from an outside perspective, just wondering what has kind of impressed you most about this Revolution team through the early part of the season?
Tactical flexibility, individual performances, and the Bruce effect. Like I say this, I'll do a plug. Me and Tony Miola on Sirius XM every day. Channel 157. We have Bruce on, not frequently, but we had Bruce on, and then we had Matt on a couple weeks ago. And defensive stability, set yourself up to win. You've got an extraordinary goalkeeper. I expect him to be the starting goalkeeper in the Gold Cup for Greg Berhalter. So that's going to be a bit of a hit for you guys in the summer months. But I think when you have a shot-stopping, commanding presence in the air and a good vocal leader and a very, very competent goalkeeper with his feet, you have this reliability across the back line where if you're in trouble, if you make a mistake, it's not always going to end up in conceding a goal. Very athletic back line where you can plug and play different starters. You're still in kind of a development phase, I would think, in terms of watching some of these players who maybe in a year or 2 years could be absolute lockdown starters, but at the same time, make some mistakes. I'm always impressed with kind of the width in the wing play from outside backs overlapping. I think Tejan Buchanan continues to prove that this kid is a really, really talented player that gives you verticality. He gives you width. He gives you kind of this inverting support in underneath. Gustavo Bo is an animal. I mean, when I think about just traits, the dude just wants to eat everybody's lunch that's around him. And he's so competent with his movement. And even, I'll call it a tap in at the weekend. He just finds right place, right time. And while holding players accountable, because he likes to yell at times, you can tell that he's also a leader. And then Carlos Gil, extraordinary. And it shouldn't be lost on anybody, the value and the importance of him, if you just look back at New England with him and New England without him when he went down with the Achilles injury, and then New England with him again. I think he's extraordinary. I think the more that New England finds itself around or near the top of the Eastern Conference, Carlos Gil's conversation about MVP will be in the same category as, and I know they're different, a Nicolas Ladero, a Pozuelo, a Lucas Zelarayan, those type of players, because I think as the team has success, then we always inevitably give the best player on the best team the accolades that they deserve. So really, really impressed. And again, let me take one step back. For the Crafts to get Bruce at the time that they did, it was kind of a risk for both sides, right? Because Bruce, and coming off what happened with the national team, there was kind of this odd push, and I understand why, because it's the disappointment of missing out on the World Cup. But it's not Bruce, right? The players on the field are the players that win and lose games, but essentially we're time managers to that. So I understand that. But for the Crafts to finally get their man, to get arguably the best manager in the history of Major League Soccer to New England, to open up an extraordinary training facility that I still haven't been to, and to figure out the ways to give him the keys to the car and turn, I don't know, a Yugo into a Ferrari with the way that this team is playing. You got to give them all credit, top to bottom. This organization has redefined who they are in a short amount of time, and it shouldn't be any surprise that they're at the top of the Eastern Conference.
Well, Dunny, let me present an official invitation to you. Anytime you want to come out to the New England Revolution Training Center, you are more than welcome.
I love it. So I don't have to go to Rentham. I don't have to train or change. Where were we? We were changing across from the bubble, the walk step from the bubble, and then driving to Rentham. And then
no more Payson Park, no more, none of it.
Am I the only one that misses the old Foxborough? Like the smell of like beer and like peanuts on the ground, and like they play closing time at the end of matches when you're walking off the field. Like that long grass that was like chunks missing all over the field, and like Thomas Rongen smoking up underneath the scoreboard when he was suspended or coming back from international duty. Like I miss all these moments. Like I miss
nostalgia factor off the charts for sure. I wish there were some championships tied in there with those memories.
Hey man, but it was a tough
that's
time.
On you.
It was on me. It was on Walter Zenga. I blame Alexi somehow. Yeah, man, we had a fun team. I miss those guys. That was a good group. We weren't good. We were average. We lost some games a couple times, maybe like 5-0. We had some good games. We had some fun.
It was fun. It's all about the memories. Yeah. But just finally, you mentioned these two teams know each other pretty well. Yeah. It's not only a rematch of last year's Eastern Conference final, it's also a rematch of a meeting that was just about a month ago at Gillette Stadium, which the Revs won 1-0 on a late Adam Buxa goal. Since then, Columbus are 3-1-1. They started to figure things out a little bit, but they're still struggling to score goals, 9 goals through 10 games. So kind of what has been your read on the defending champs through the first 10 games of the season?
I think it's naive not to recognize that they went to an MLS Cup final. And, listen, winning a trophy is winning a trophy. And that's what we're not judging teams on Eastern Conference or Western Conference championships. We're not judging them on Supporters Shield. We're not judging them on US Open Cups. Like we do judge them on CONCACAF Champions League, but that's because there's this narrative that we have to be better than Liga MX after 26 years, which is absurd when you look at the spending. But we MLS Cups are the most important. That's what we define success and failure, right? Failure is missing out on the playoffs. Success is winning an MLS Cup. So I think for all of us, it'd be naive not to recognize what these deep runs can do to teams the following year, because you're going to an MLS Cup final in December, and you're essentially starting at the end of January. So there's not a lot of recovery time for these players. And this is a narrative we're talking worldwide for all of the players at the highest level, especially coming out of this COVID time, where I think people forget that, and I was trying to make this point the other day, that, these players have been going for the better part of almost 2 straight years, because when you think about COVID, it wasn't like they got away and went on vacation. Like these guys were still training hard every day to try to maintain their fitness. and the psychological side of it, as well as the physical side, you know, doing yoga and riding the bike and doing these Zoom workouts. And you still got to run. You still got to stay fit. You still got to exercise every day at the highest level. That means pushing yourself. So all these players are going through a lot of things. There's a roadmap, right? Remember Toronto FC? They beat Seattle in the final at BMO Field. The next year they go into CONCACAF Champions League. They do pretty well. And next thing you know, they don't make the playoffs. And you're like, wait, they've got to kick on. They've got to kick on. They never kicked on. So I think what Caleb's team is figuring out is how to manage the early start with CONCACAF Champions League after not that much rest, and then figure out the really difficult Eastern Conference. Because I think besides New England, Orlando City and Seattle are the most impressive teams in Major League Soccer. And I know Sporting Kansas City fans are going to get fired up, but they're up there as well. But I think in the start so far, it's been impressive. So Columbus, I think they're going to kick on. I don't have a concern about them. I think when you're talking about getting Kevin Molino into the equation, you know, you have Pedro Santos, you have Giassi, you have Lucas Zellerán. That front four is a threatening front four, right? You've got size, you have pace, you have athleticism, you have speed, you have verticality, you have possession, you have creativity, you have super high intelligence. And the only thing that I would say is defensively, we're getting a better look at Wormgore, the center back alongside Mensah, and trying to figure out, okay, what is his true capabilities after going down in, I think it was the Orlando bubble is when he went down with that ankle injury. So we didn't really get to see a lot of him. You know, Valenzuela and Harrison, a full wide speed, getting forward, service, variation. And then Eloy Room, fantastic in the Gold Cup a couple years ago. I think he's been okay in Columbus. Not nearly the best, among the best of that conversation, but he's been solid. So I think they'll kick on. And by the way, Darlington Nagbe, pretty good little player, sitting in the midfield, pulling the strings. So yeah, I think it's a very even match. And I think we're probably going to see something similar to what we saw in New England. But I would say there's more of an impetus to get forward and attack and score goals and put on a show and entertain with the new stadium and that excitement. And there might be a little bit of naive situational play where I think New England could potentially take advantage of it.
Well, Dunny, we could do this all day, but I know you're very busy and important. You got lots of places to be and things to do. You
could just say, I need you to shut up and I want to go now.
This is literally the only place I ever see you. All right. Well, Dunny, thanks so much for taking the time, man. Always a pleasure. And hey, we'll look forward to hearing you on the call on Saturday, 5 p.m. Eastern time on ESPN when the Revs visit the Columbus Crew.
It's going to be a blast. Thank you so much.